Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to my panel. So I will present about my research, which is the relationship between competitive anxiety and coronavirus anxiety after returning to competition during the COVID-19 pandemic of KLCT Football Club player. My name is Muhammad Ashraf bin Yusof. So we go for the table of content. First is background of the study. Second, statement of the problem. Third is research objective. Fourth is significance of the study. Fifth is literature review. Sixth is methodology. Seven is chapter 4, and 8 is chapter 5, which is chapter 4 is the result of the data, and chapter 5 is conclusion and recommendation, and lastly is reference. So first is the background of the study. So coronavirus COVID-19 became a widespread health crisis with a high amount of mortality and morbidity since December 2019 by Guan Wu year 2020, he stated. So according to Lee, research on coronaphobia has revealed that individuals who are fearful and anxious about COVID-19 tend to experience a coherent set of unpleasant physiological symptoms that are triggered by thoughts of or information associated with this infectious disease. So in the early of 2020, the Malaysian government has announced the Movement Control Order MCO due to the COVID-19 cases. Competitive anxiety is a bad emotional condition that occurs when a person believes they are unable to meet competitive demands. Despite the widespread belief that athletes are immune to major COVID-19 infection, the virus has infected a number of people and, in certain cases, whole sport teams. A study conducted regarding on-home confinement as a result of the coronavirus has shown that athletes experience negative psychological effect by Dong and Boy year 2020 and Torrential and Asif 2020. So my subject that I take give a questionnaire to them, which is football team in Malaysia, which is located at Kuala Lumpur, which is Kuala Lumpur City Football Club or KLCT FC. So KLCT FC is a professional football club headquartered in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and participate in the Malaysian Super League at the top level of Malaysian football. The recent performance achievement, first is Malaysia Cup 2021, which is last year, the champions beat JDT. So second is Super League 2021, 6th position, and current the position of in the Super League 2022 is number 6. So the owner of this club is from Malaysia, which is Anwar Musa. The total number of players in this club have 28 players. The head coach of this club is from Croatia, which is Bojan Hodak. So the statement of problem is elite athletes are generally under competitive stress according to Mustafa et al. 2020, yet being a member of the population, they are also afflicted by the physical and mental ramifications of the COVID-19 pandemic. Second, the pandemic emotional impact on professional athletes stem from the cancellation or delay of events, training violation, and the frequent removal and installation of lockdown, all of which created uncertainty about their sport careers. So my research objective is to identify competitive anxiety among KLCT players. Second, to identify the coronavirus anxiety among KLCT players. And lastly is the objective of this study are aimed to examine the relationship between competitive anxiety, coronavirus anxiety, and after returning to competition during the COVID-19 pandemic. So the significance of study, first is athlete. The player will be able to know information on their mental health, especially on competitive anxiety and coronavirus anxiety. Second, coach. The coach can evaluate their players' mental readiness by looking at the result of the research. Third, lastly, is management, where the management can use the result as an eye-opener to the importance of mental health, especially on competitive anxiety and coronavirus anxiety. So the chapter 2, which is literature review. So state by Leavitt 2015, Anxiety, on the other hand, is defined as broad sensation of RS and anxiety that occurs as an operation to a situation that is only deemed psychologically dangerous. Is frequently linked to restlessness, mass attention, focus issues, and exhaustion. Second is David 2020 and Harkison state that the pandemic emotional impact on professional athletes resulted from the cancellation or delay of contents, training violation, and the frequent removal and placing of lockdown, all of which created uncertainty for their sporting career. Third is Campbell 2018 state that elite athletes appear to be stressed and anxious as a result of the ongoing pandemic as well as competition-related stress. So next is Usher 2020 state that impact of COVID-19 on sport. COVID-19 is a brand new source of conflict, and the necessity for quarantine is something that only a few generations have experienced. For many individuals, everyday life alter radically, and normal methods of existence as we know them are halted forever. So the quarantine, often known as imposed isolation, is an unfamiliar and uncomfortable experience that entails being separated from friends and family as well as change in daily activities. As a result, soccer players and pros experience anxiety as a result of the abrupt change in routine, which can lead to the impression that there is nothing else to do. So Smith, Small and Such 1990 state that competitive anxiety is an athlete negative emotional reaction when his self-esteem is challenged by a daunting test, and he will always require performance ability, which have an influence on competitive behavior. Anxiety may be generalized into two types: anxiety experienced by athletes at a certain moment, such as before a game, which is state anxiety, and anxiety experienced because players are labeled as nervous, which is trait anxiety. So the lastly is Roy 2020 state that because of its highly infectious, unknown, and possibly fatal characteristic, the coronavirus has caused worry and anxiety among a considerable section of the world population. For example, more than 80% of adults in India were concerned about the coronavirus, whereas 66.5% of adults in the United States concerned. Because them don't know treatment or vaccination for the coronavirus, uh, the people become sick or infected loved one is particularly terrifying. So next is chapter 3, methodology. Uh, there are 5, which is research design, sampling, instrumentation, data collection procedure, and data analysis. So the IV is coronavirus anxiety and competitive anxiety. So the sampling is the population of KLCT player entity, inclusion criteria, men first team squad. The exclusion criteria have 4, which are board of director, coaches, physiotherapists, and staff. So the sample size is 28 subjects from 30 players of KLCT Football Club. Number of samples were taken based on the table Creasy and Morgan 1970. So the sample technique I use is non-probability sampling and purposive sampling. So the instrumentation is have 2, which is a set of questionnaire which consists of the following sections. Section A is first is competitive anxiety scale. That's by Martins 1990. So the reliability, the consistency and stability with which a test measure what is supposed to assess is referred to as test reliability. The degree of intensity with which the exam is administered as well as the individual incentive to complete it will determine its reliability. The following link lists a number of factors that might affect test finding and as a result test reliability. So the validity, the degree to which a test measure what is supposed to measure, as well as the proportionals and meaning of detection, conclusion, and action based on test score is referred to as test validity. This test can be used to track the impact of training on anxiety. So the section B is coronavirus anxiety scale, which is state that is self-report mental health screener of defunctional anxiety associated with the coronavirus crisis. because a significant number of people experience clinically significant fear and anxiety during an infectious disease outbreak. The chess was developed to help clinicians and researchers effectively identify cases of individual functional impaired by coronavirus-related anxiety. So the reliability is the chess has been shown to a reliable instrument as more than 90 with a good factorial, single factor invariant across socio-demographic and concept correlated with anxiety, depression, social adaptation, and drug alcohol coping validity in independent investigation of adults across the United States. So the validity based on experience during the last 2 weeks, each item of the chart is assessed on 5-point scale ranging from 0 not at all to 4 almost every day. The symptom scale follow the DSM-5 cross-cutting symptom measure. A chest total score more than 9 indicate possible coronavirus-related anxiety disorder. So increased score on single item or high overall skill score more than 9 may indicate that the individual is experiencing significant symptoms that require additional evaluation or treatment. The interpretation of the chart result should be guided by clinical judgment. So the data collection procedure is first, active approval from KLCT Football Club. Second, ask permission to conduct the research. Third is briefing to the respondent about the study and questionnaire. Fourth is distribute questionnaire to the respondent through online. Fifth, collect the questionnaire. And sixth is analyze the data. So this is my questionnaire to my respondent, which is have 28 players. So I use SPSS, which is 26 software. Method I use independent t-test. So I have 3 objectives. So to identify competitive anxiety, to identify the coronavirus anxiety, and lastly to examine the relationship between competitive anxiety, coronavirus anxiety, and after returning to patient during the COVID-19 pandemic. So the chapter 4 is the data analyzed using the SPSS. So I get the result independent t-test, group statistic, and independent sample test. For the first question I give to the player, which has 5 questions. CAS is mean that coronavirus anxiety scale. So the second question is sport competitive anxiety scale, which have 15 questions to give the 28 players. So the conclusion and recommendation is in conclusion, professional football players need a recognition of the value of this finding for ongoing and planned competition will highlight the need for political ways to reduce fear and anxiety such as mental health, consolation, and providing recommendation for the athletes. Additionally, further efforts are suggested to build a longer-term and sustainable strategy to reduce the psychophysiological stress response in pre- and post-pandemic situation. Thus, research is needed to build a strategy to reduce the psychophysiological stress related to COVID-19 and competition response. So my recommendation is in future, my recommendation is that the football team must learn physical or social distancing 1 meter between the player, quarantine, ventilation of indoor spaces, wearing masks if cough and sneezes, hand washing, and keeping unclean hands away from the face are some preventive strategy. This will decrease the anxiety towards coronavirus. This will decrease the anxiety towards coronavirus among football. So this is my references. That I use to do my research. So that's all from me. Thank you for the panel listening to my presentation. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.